Hello.
Steve.
Hey. Hey. I'll get on the horn here with the video aspect here too.
Hi, Michael.
Hey.
I'm going to go ahead and hit the record button here, and we're already streaming.
Excellent. Sorry for the delay here. One moment. Okie dokie. It is 5:02 p.m. on May 27th, 2021, and I would call the meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Grand Marais Public Library to order. I guess first thing is I need to read the statement why we're doing virtually still. Number one, it has been determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the related peacetime emergency declaration of the Governor Walls in accordance with Minnesota Statutes Chapter 12. We have ensured that all members of the body participating in the meeting, wherever their physical location, can hear one another and can hear all discussion and testimony offered at today's meeting. Also, we have also ensured that members of the public present at the regular meeting location, which I guess that doesn't apply here, but can hear all discussion and testimony and all votes of the members of the body. And all votes will be conducted by roll call, so we can record each member's vote on you. So that being said, I'll do a roll call. Just say here, please. Kevin?
Here.
Sarah?
Here.
Sue?
Here.
Michael?
Here.
And Dave is here as well. And first item on our agenda, consent agenda, I guess. Agenda there, if there's any changes anyone would like to make to that, please give a signal of some kind. Like it. So then we also have the minutes and the bills. So I would entertain a motion for the consent.
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Kevin? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Michael?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Dave is aye as well. Thank you. That brings us down to the director's report. Go away, Amanda.
I think I'm mostly going to reiterate some of what I put in my written director's report for this one. Just because there's been a lot going on of taking a look at the building here and some technology in the building. So we did have our AED defibrillator machine fail, so I did have to replace that. Our new replacement just arrived. Our fire alarm and life safety system, which is managed by something called ESC, those folks stopped by to test. We needed 2 batteries replaced. We needed 2 of our sensors moved a little bit further away from vents to meet current standards. And other than that, we passed all of our tests. I got a little introduction to the security panel on how to turn some of the noisy things off or on. And also I was pretty excited we were able to share the cost of mileage with another organization in Cook County. And then I just, you know, we've moved all of our furniture, so it's a little bit easier to see walls and cracks and dings here and there. So I've also created a list of things that needed repair, and I've been working with property maintenance on those. So for example, one of our front doors wasn't closing properly on its own. We had a window crank for the pickup window that started to go out. That's been swapped. There was a little tile that we needed fixed back to the wall. Just little things like this that keep our building looking really nice. There's some pretty significant cracking on the circular wall on 2nd. And that's on the exterior as well as the interior. And we have some other cracking on the walls back by the public computer area. And I think that when Steve was here as the director, conversations were started about the wall cracking. I just don't know where that got left. So as soon as Lenny gets a chance, he and I will talk and see if there's any history. And if not, I'll just start fresh and see what needs to be done for those things. It's like the building is settling, and I just don't know what we need for that one. I've talked a few times this year about our telephone system. We have a telephone system that's a Panasonic system. It was installed by a company from Duluth. It can be maintained locally by Sundew Technology. And we've had a lot of problems with our cordless phones. So as long as I've been here, we've had difficulties transferring the phones. I don't know if it's the sequence or if it's the signal going back to the panel and routing the phone calls around. We also had some problems with the cordless phones that our clerks are using where they're not able to answer the call. I don't know if it's not registering again to the system panel or what, but it's getting worse. So I did have Jeremy from Sundew a couple of months ago, I think, come in and see if he could figure out what was going on. He couldn't identify the problem. So I did a low-hanging fruit measure and I replaced our cordless phones with new phones so that we could just see if it was the units themselves. He did not see any failures with the panels in our server closet. He thought the technology still looked solid. Because we're still having these problems and so much of our service is going through our phone line, I really am interested in getting our phones looked at for, for an upgrade. They're just not functioning the way that we need them to. So you'll hear more about that. I'm just going to look into our options and see what could be next. Programming I wanted to talk about tonight just because it's been exciting. We had the juggling kits come through, the take and make kits. We went through them in about 5 days and had demand for more. And an anonymous entity in ALS shipped us 30 more kits that went out just as quickly. So we've been inspiring random acts of juggling throughout Cook County this summer, and it's been a lot of fun. We've also just launched a new early literacy program called Reading Ready. This is a long-term support program for new families, ages 0 till about the time that a child can start reading on their own. And the goal is for parents to build a relationship and rapport and a regular routine of reading with their young ones every day for at least 15 minutes. It helps build those early letter recognition and literacy skills, as well as encourage that passion for reading. So we're pretty excited about this and very grateful to the Library Friends of Cook County who funded the launch of this program. So each child gets their own tote bag. Once they reach their first 25 days, we give them patches to sew their name to their book bag. And then in addition to earning little incentives like a book or a puppet or a, whatever thing that we come up with for the various ages in the program, they also reach milestones and get to choose their own patch. So as they go, the bag becomes more customized based on the personality of the little one. So this is pretty good. And of course, next month we launch summer reading. So we are hopping with our programs. Do you folks have any questions for me?
Be shaking of heads. I have a few questions. And before I forget, that's awesome. The patches on the packs. That's just such a great incentive for kids. I can remember wanting to collect stickers, right, and or whatever. And so patches are even cooler in my book, longer lasting, and that's just a really great program. And the earlier we can start, the better on anything and everything. So I'm so grateful that the youngest of the young are entered, or the program is to target them. That's just so great. But my questions, I guess, were about the AED first. How did you discover it failed?
Sure. So there are little icons on it, and the icons tell you what problems to trouble solve. And this one was showing me battery plus a wrench, which means some part inside of the machine is failing. I worked with Kim over at City Hall to test batteries, to exchange parts out and see if it was something we could just get a repair on. And then when all of that failed, I confirmed with an AED sales company the symbols I was getting and whether it could be corrected. And the age of the machine really blocks it from being repaired. They just aren't making the parts anymore.
Yeah. And so what was it giving? I mean, do you do a monthly check and then you saw these symbols? Is that, yeah, okay, that's what I was wondering. Yeah, we've had a recall on a unit in the jail, and then had replacement pads for that, but then there's also just been there's been a lot of AED talk lately, so that's why I was curious. Yeah.
Okay.
Something in the air, maybe.
Could be.
But then lastly, so thank you for bringing up the cracks in the wall. And I did have a chance to talk with Mayor Jay, who I thought might have some perspective on that. And he could not recall specifically what was done, aside from that had been an issue in the past. And his vague recollection that there was excavation done, and I guess at the time Commissioner Gamble was on the library board and was out there physically shoveling with the crew, is what Jay's memory was. So, and then he thought some drain tile was installed, but beyond that, he wasn't certain. And he did give me Steve's number to follow up, and I have not yet followed up because Steve might have better recollection. But of course, I would hope Lenny would have very good recollection too. And rather than bother Steve, maybe I'll hold off on that contact until you hear from Lenny to see what's what.
That sounds good. I'll also consult our minutes from prior years. I think the last I heard there was, I don't know if we installed eaves there, but that doesn't take care of the cracking that already exists.
Right. Yep.
Thanks for your research.
Yeah, and it wasn't, it's not as far as I could go, but I'm willing to go further. But first, I think that makes sense to talk with Lenny first, since right. I thought I had a question with that, but maybe not. I guess that was all I wanted to bring up. Anybody else? Any questions to this point?
I just wanted to follow up on one thing with the AEDs. So are you guys actually trained with that on staff? Yeah.
Yeah, The city is a partner in the AWARE program, a workplace safety program, and I believe they offer definitely one session, if not two, that teaches the use of this machine. I have to tell you though, I'm kind of freaked out by the new one, and I'll be connecting with the coordinator of the AWARE program, as well as finding some videos so that we can get a little more familiar with the new machine.
And then a follow on, just so who were you able to coordinate with and bring up? I can't remember the name of the group that came up to check it out.
I don't know who the other person is.
Oh.
What I was able to do though is just when I first became a director, I reached out to this company to ask some questions, and they said, you know, sometimes we can coordinate. And I was like, get me on that list. Get me on that list. I like it. So we don't get to know.
How are things going with the building being open and having more people in?
Thanks for asking. Kristen, do you want to talk about it?
I think it's going really well. People are very excited to be back. Every day there's new people who are coming going, oh, I haven't been in here in so long. You guys are open. Great. Lot of excitement at this point. We still have been requiring masks, and everyone has been pretty much fine with it. There were a couple people, one in particular, who was a little resistant, but everyone else really has not had a problem with wearing a mask. But everyone is enthusiastic about being back and being able to select materials as they want, or to use the internet inside.
Do we still have the age restriction?
Yes.
Yeah.
Under 11 needs to be accompanied by an adult at this point.
Wait, under 12, right?
11 and under.
Oh, 11. Yeah, right. Okay, thank you. That's actually the critical age for my family. So that's why I was why I was inquiring further. As far as the mask kind of pushback was concerned, you know, there's lots of talk about this, and I would just, if you're willing, just if you could elaborate a little bit more about how that conversation went, or you know, if you had to dance a little bit, or what their more details of the response, I guess.
The one in particular who was the one that probably pushed it the most was when she came in, whoever greeted her, our concierge, as they like to call themselves, said this, and she says, "Yes, I know." Her line whenever we would, you know, and just remind her is, "Yes, I know." So she was very, you know, pushed that way. She came in wearing it, but then one of the other clerks was in the stacked shelving and was in her area and saw that she had taken it off, and just reminded her gently to put it back on. "Yes, I know." And so the staff handled it very well, and they have been very good at explaining to people why we are still requiring it at this point, and that, you know, it probably isn't for much longer, but at this point we still are. And they've handled the talking points really well. And at this point, after she dealt with her, she just, you know, we just kind of left her alone, because yeah, it wasn't worth it going any further. We had done what we can. We can't force them to, you know, we offer the alternatives, but you know, she was in and she was going to do what she needed to do. So, but the staff handled it well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for elaborating on that, and thank you for you and the staff for addressing that. And I think that was very gracefully done by the sound of it.
So is the plan then, Kristen or Amanda, to follow the school year or the MDE's sort of version, or the school year? Is that right, Amanda?
Right now, I'm just aiming for the school year, which ends here around June 4. The the hesitation here is children. We serve children, and no one under 16 has the eligibility to be vaccinated. And so for that reason, I'm choosing to align with the guidance from the Minnesota Department of Education. Now, our situation is a little different because we don't just dissolve our functionality on June 4. We continue operating where the schools would let out. So staff and I are in conversations about kind of where to go next. There's a potential that we may just encourage masking and continue to offer support by wearing masks for a while longer. But ultimately we're moving towards a mask-free library. And I think we're supposed to get guidance tomorrow from the governor. If he stays on his timeline, tomorrow would end social distancing and maximum occupancy. So in my mind, it would be like, okay, the community has had some time to adjust to the changes to the mask ordinance. At the end of the month here, we'll be wrapping up potentially the social distancing and maximum occupancy, which would put our library back together kind of furniture-wise. And then we would be taking that next step of backing down from the mask. So we're trying to be thoughtful as we move forward.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Any other questions? Oh, and that was the whole, I'm sorry, that was the whole director's report. Oh, I remembered the last thing I wanted to ask about, and it wasn't an ask as much as it was, again, a gratitude just for staying on top of all, like the tile, the single tile that needed replacing, or the crank, or just what all those little things. It just, for a customer's experience, it just makes a big difference to have those kinds of details paid attention to. So I really appreciate it, and so that, you know, smaller things don't turn into bigger things. I just think that's really, really well done. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And so you were saying that the staff has been taking on the custodial duties, and I've been wondering, how is that going, and can it keep going, or what's the thought there?
Everyone is pitching in and doing their part. I volunteered to do urinals and toilets and hard floors. Kristen's doing vacuuming. And then basically each staff group has a set of responsibilities that they're chipping in to do. Right now, we are up to 50 people a day coming into the library. It's really exciting. We're getting about 50 people every day, pretty consistently. That does leave us some downtime where we can continue working on the custodial things. But if we were normal times and we were having 150 to 300 people coming through the door in a day, running programming and everything else, not so feasible.
Got it. Thank you so much to you and everybody for pitching in.
Here, here. All right. Well, unless there are any other questions, we can move on from the director's report down to committee reports. First one being financial committee. And yes, we did meet and over the budget. And as you can see in the spreadsheet, and then also the memo in our packet has a breakdown there. And the overall 6.7% increase certainly gave pause for us as a committee, I'd say, to ask questions and look things over and look at why that's the case. And you know, for everyone's knowledge, anything above 5% and below, maybe it's below 5%, I don't recall, is an automatic approval from the county board. So anything above that threshold, it's a discussion at the county board level, and so it's of course always nice to keep it simple, but what the committee, and please committee chime in if you feel differently, but what we basically came to the conclusion is we don't think it's a good idea to cut service level on account of factors that we can't control, and basically insurance. We of course still want to compensate staff for their time in a fair manner and to keep up with the cost of living increases. And so what the numbers said it will be at that 6.7%, and thought that would have broader community support and maintaining a high quality library. Any further thoughts on that from either committee or the board as a whole?
Yeah, I just want to put in one thing that, I know that what we're asking for is reasonable. Like there's nothing I'm looking at in there that feels like a big ask. It seems like it's a very reasonable ask. And if we, get pushback, well, we'll talk about it at that time. But I feel like at least the first ask should be this, because this is very reasonable. And certainly we might be able to find room somewhere, but I think initially this is a good place for us to start and say like, yeah, this is what we need, and hopefully we'll get it, but it's budgeting, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and we did talk a little bit about, well, if and when there is pushback, or just the discussion about where could there be cuts, it really comes down to books and periodicals, and that's just an area that we as a committee did not want to lessen for our library. Just kind of also looked at the historical levels in that category, and talked about why they had been less in the past, and that was largely for the creation of the library assistant position, and then it grew from, and so it was higher before that, but then was reduced to try to compensate for that new position, and then it's grown gradually over time, and we're back kind of at that healthy level, is how I describe it. Any other perspectives there, or you feel we're all on similar pages?
Yeah, I noticed that the biggest increases were all in things that the library doesn't have control over. So I thought you guys did a really nice job of keeping the budget increase as low as you did, given that so many other increases were just sort of put upon us. It looks really solid to me. Like Michael, I think it's a great starting place. And I think it's a very reasonable and defensible budget.
Right. Well, I don't hear, thank you, Sarah, for the feedback. I don't hear any other question at this point. So I could ask for a motion to approve this budget if feeling like ready.
I'll move to approve this budget.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Kevin? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? One question I think is fair to ask, and I don't know if we did ask this at the committee level, but is it enough? As Michael put well, I think it's a very reasonable budget, but is this embodying where we're at as a board? Do we want to push for more, or is this just a really solid place that we really shouldn't ask for much more, and we just gotta kind of absorb these insurance costs and costs out of our control? And I'm not pushing for it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we could, pull this off the agenda and go back to committee and talk about it. Yeah, I guess I strangely enough, I hadn't thought about that either. Like, we could ask for more. Yeah.
I was just playing devil's advocate, really. And maybe that's an unhealthy thing to do when we're trying to get stuff done.
I don't know. I just feel so solid about it, and I feel like I could very easily argue this one, defend it. If I were to add something now, I'd feel less so. So,
Same.
I would, yeah, I'd say we should go with the vote on this one.
Very good. Forgive me for asking that question. I'll do a roll call vote if there's no further discussion. Sue?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Dave is aye as well. We have it passed unanimously. Thank you, Board. Thank you, Amanda. Now moving on to policy. Oh, I'm sorry.
With it, I just have some questions now that it's been approved. So because it's been approved, I can move it through to City Council. The manner in which I do that is my question. So just to give some context, last year was my first budget year. And I basically gave the city administrator a letter that said, this is the budget we want, and here's the budget, give this to City Council. And then I showed up with, to meet with Mayor Jay, who was gonna be there and kind of help present it, and he wasn't there. He got called out on a search and rescue. So essentially what happened was that I gave a budget with no information or context as to what we had done. And I'd really like to do something just a little nicer this year. Would you feel comfortable if I developed a letter similar to the memo in your board packet this month that would come from you to them to just say, this is what we're doing. The three, we're just taking the city's projections and this is it. And then I also wondered, does the board feel that it would be helpful, necessary to include a list, perhaps a one-page discussion of what those funds are doing for the community? For example, this year we have the example of the juggling kits. Like we're getting people to move their body. We're teaching them different culture. We do this many programs. We've had this many attendance. Do you want something like that to supplement your letter?
Well, I'll leave it to the board first.
Makes sense to me to start out with as much information as you can in print so that it's embedded in people's minds to start with what you intended.
To play the devil's advocate, I was actually thinking that maybe not so much information at first, like keeping it a little cleaner, a little crisper, just for people when they have questions and they can ask questions. And if we get to the point in when we have to, give and take, we can talk about that. I just know that there are some people who will look at some of those things who don't come from a place of education or what have you, and would think like, why in the hell do we need that? Cut that out. You guys don't need all that money. Why do you need that money? Like, let's not feed that until we need to, we have to, if we have to, and we may not. I mean, I think the budget is clean. I think it is solid, and I don't know that we need to add too much more detail. Sometimes you can create, little storms in a teacup there if you if you give them the feed they need. my 2 cents, or a little more.
I think it would be nice to include something like the memo you did for us to explain, why the increase is largely due to assumed expenses. But I don't think you need to prepare to defend the budget in that way by explaining all of the wonderful things the library does. I think that's something you could certainly present when you talk to the city or the county. But you don't need to be on the defensive about why this budget is where it's at. I would just go with an explanation for, like you did for us.
Question. Are you processing, Kevin? Do you have any input?
Well, I've gone through presenting budgets to groups for a long time, mostly church groups and mostly church budgets. And that affects everybody, quite a bit. And usually I just try to understand my own budget and where all the numbers come from and why did we choose that number to be in the budget and how are we going to survive any other way, and just talk to people that way during the presentation. Or in some cases with the church budget, we have a listening session where we invite everybody to come and talk to us about the budget. And then they'll say, well, how the hell did you ever decide to have $1,000 in that category? And that sort of thing. So I just prepare the defense, but I don't present it very well or very much until I'm challenged on it. I did work on the budget for a very large church in Downers Grove, Illinois. And that was done the same way, where we knew what the defense of each number was, but we didn't really spend a lot of time presenting it to the congregation. My experience here in Grand Marais is that people are afraid of numbers. I'm really surprised. At least at our church, they're afraid of numbers. So I can just throw numbers at them and they'll just walk away. So it just surprises me, but I'm an engineer and numbers are important, so.
Yeah, that's good perspective. I don't think the city council or the county board will be too afraid of numbers, though.
No, I'm sure not.
Yeah. But I think, yeah. My knee-jerk reaction was that they should be separate conversations, like an annual report and a budget request. Those should be separate. One is to kind of show off, and the other is to present a solid, just the budget, I guess. So I like the idea of kind of keeping it pared down, much like the memo. I think that's really wise and very clear. And then everything's different and challenging and whatnot, and we're adapting, but we should maybe think about scheduling an annual report for both the city council and board at some point. But I don't know that needs to be at the same time as the budget request. But on the other hand, maybe it's just a good opportunity, so I could go either way. I think it seems like we're all in agreement that the memo side of things, that simple one is for sure. And it's just fun to do something beyond that. And maybe that's exactly what you were asking, Amanda.
Yeah, I just looking for how you would like to present your budget. The second question that I would have is about representation at the council meeting. when we're not asking for a 21% increase to introduce a brand new full-time position to the library, the general feeling is that the director to answer any questions and the council liaison is sufficient. And Michael and board, I just want to make sure that you're still comfortable with that for this discussion, so that I know who to pair up with or get ready when, who I should inform to attend the meeting.
I'm very comfortable with that myself.
Yeah.
Does that mean you're going solo and then Michael is there as well? Is that, yeah. Then solo and then the county board, I'm there as well. Is that what you're, in the past there has been.
Let's start with the city and see what happens. And then I think we'll have a clearer sense of what to do after that. That'd be okay.
Yeah, and Michael, if you'd know better about the city dynamics, but if it would be helpful, or Amanda, if you would like me there, I would be happy to attend for support or whatever. More blabber. I'm good at blabbering.
Yeah, well, you know, the more the merrier.
Well, I'd be happy to. So just keep me posted there, please. Or if you'd rather not, then I don't need to. I'm offering my support. All right. So the memo, please. Yes, something like that for the city council, and we'll start there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Moves us down to policy committee, no report. Personnel committee, no report. Communications, we have the fund statement, unfinished business there. And new business, first review of the budget. We've been there, done that. This is not on the agenda, so faux pas my part. But there's a lot of talk about in-person meetings again, and I believe come July that we having in-person meetings again. But so I think we should talk about that. Telephone meetings are still allowed unless the legislature changes things. These video meetings aren't, and it's just a very strange law. You can still phone into these video meetings, so that counts or whatever. I don't necessarily think we'd get challenged, but I think it's probably a good idea to start moving in that direction. Now, Sue, you've got well, Sarah too. Well, some of us will have a larger commute, and so this is a bigger deal. And does it mean we need to change times? That's significant for the posting of our meeting times and dates, the schedule. Looking for feedback there. Any concerns, or are people just concerned about meeting in person? Where is people's comfort level there? Yeah. Here's a scatter shot for you.
Well, I'll be honest, this is easier for me than going to town is going to be, but I'll work with whatever you end up doing. The longer we do it this way, the easier it is for me.
I would be thrilled to go back to in-person meetings as soon as the library is willing to have us in their space, masked or unmasked, depending on what their policy is at the time. I can certainly make the time and dates work, even in person.
Yeah, I can work with whatever we decide. That's fine. I was actually going to ask that, Dave, because I had talked to James the other day, and he was talking about how it's going to come to a close. We can't keep doing this. And I think it's kind of a bummer. not for me personally, but I think in terms of keeping people in meetings who live further out or maybe have some sort of challenge, being able to move around and that kind of thing. So it's kind of a bummer that way, but I understand it's a law. But hopefully we'll change that. Anyway, I'm good either way.
Mike, I had a question, and probably I should know this since I'm a city employee anyway, but is there any talk over there about being able to do it as a hybrid model? Or is there anything in the law that would prohibit a hybrid model?
Yeah, you can't, I mean, you can do a phone in, but you can't do this. You can't do a Zoom. So right now we're doing hybrid at the city, but that will end very shortly here. So
And the strange thing is that I am on the phone right now, and I'm on the video, right? So that's why I'm a little baffled that it's just such a strange law gray area, because I think I am legally. I think just by being on the phone in this Zoom meeting, I think I am legally covered if perchance, it's say July right now. So. And I have not yet heard of any, well, I guess there's a lot of talk about it at the state level, but I have not heard of anyone challenging it or boards getting their hands slapped. And I'm not suggesting that we want to be the board to get our hands slapped, but we could be the board to do that, to push the envelope there. So I also just want to make sure we can make it as convenient and inclusive as possible. And so for someone living up the trail, it makes so much sense to be able to do this. I do have concerns about equity from a number of angles, but if we did have everyone but one person in person, it's not the same experience. But I think as far as discussion is concerned and votes are concerned, we could do that very systematically, methodically, and I'm not concerned with that so much. But Sue, if you would like, I would be willing, and the board needs to talk about this, but I would be willing for you to try it from a distance with the phone in, or I don't know. Could that work on your end to do the phone in? Just
It could. I would, maybe if there was some flexibility, I'd make it down there if I could. And then if I couldn't, then have another option besides failing to attend. I'm gonna guess after a year of Zoom meetings, there will be more than one organization that isn't ready to give this up.
absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of talk regionally about it, and in the past I have attended via phone for COVID for meetings.
So
But that was much
just,
more difficult than it is now. I'm sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, I just have logistical questions. So so if everybody's meeting in person, but one person is calling in, do I have to televise the meeting or stream it? Or if someone's calling in, can we run that phone call through my personal cell phone? Because we don't really have a conference call set up in the library.
Very good question. I don't know the details of that call-in law. Maybe I can round about that. And who knows? Maybe by the time. I'm sorry.
I could ask Mike too.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say where I'm getting updates from is from the Association of Minnesota Counties, and they're basically lobbyists, and so they're pushing for them to change this law. And so who knows, maybe, there's special sessions coming, but just fairly skeptical of much progress on too many fronts. But we'll see. Maybe by that time we'll get changed, because I think most all county commissioners recognize the value driving 3 hours one way. A lot of rural counties like that.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one thing. I'm pretty sure I remember that you establish how you're going to have the meeting. So like if you say it's going to be like this, then you record it. But if you're having in-person meeting, but there's one person phoning in, it's an in-person meeting with one person phoning in. So there's no recording per se to go on. So that was just what I remember.
Okay.
Right. Does that answer the question as best we can for now, Amanda?
Yeah, the one remaining is, are we doing this in June?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned. But what does the rest of the board think?
Yes.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I like this.
Right. You. And yeah, I think we'll just talk about this more in June, of course. If there's updates, at time we can talk about if masks. I mean, maybe it's, do we all mask? Maybe we mask if we're comfortable, but we can talk about that as time approaches.
I will send an update. I'll let you guys know closer to the date. Like I said, we're trying to be in alignment at least with the schools for this through June 4, and then it will either be a step down to preferred but not required, or it will be just the masking will be gone. So I'll check in with you also closer to the date.
And I guess I would just like to communicate to the board that a big factor in my mind is the population that cannot be vaccinated yet, and so there's going to be 12 and up here. County, I think, starting June 3rd or 2nd, something like that. And that clinic is 45 people, and it's full. And I believe there's another one the following week, if not that same week, I can't recall. And that one, again, is 45 people. Not, last I heard, it was not yet full, but filling quickly. So that's a huge chunk of the population of that, 12 to 16 or. But then there's still the under 12 population, and the talk is, I guess I don't know the recent stats on that population and how COVID is transmitted or not, but the talk of vaccination for that age group is not until the fall. So personally, I really like the masking preferred language, and I will be happy to wear a mask until we get as many people as can be who want to be vaccinated, including children. But if somebody is not comfortable wearing a mask, I am comfortable with that too. I'm a pretty comfortable guy, turns out.
So
And-
cozy.
and we-
So cozy.
Yeah, so cozy. And we can talk about this more come June, because right. So here we are. Next library board meeting is Thursday, June 24th, 2021, 5 p.m. My apologies for my down to the wire timeliness tonight. And then last thing is just to ask, unless someone has something else, last thing is just to ask for a motion to
I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Kevin. Further discussion? A roll call vote. Michael?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Sue?
I
Dave is aye as well. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Wonderful evening and
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you, everybody.